Have you ever felt a bruise inside your chest that no one can see? The kind that doesn't cry out, but hums all day like a low, steady ache? It's the ache of noticing, of catching the tremor in someone's voice when their words sound fine, of sensing the truth under a room of laughter and feeling it scrape softly against your ribs. It's a quiet grief, not for what happened, but for what everyone refuses to look at. Deep down, you've always been the one who looks. You sit at a table where the talk is light and the smiles are rehearsed, the weather a joke, a harmless story. You listen, you know the choreography. And then you say something honest, something that doesn't skim the surface but touches the pulse of what's real. The room stutters. No one knows where to put your truth. Throats clear, eyes slide away. Someone changes the subject. The moment passes, but the sting stays. It's small, yet it keeps happening, and each time a part of you folds quietly inward. Carl Jung understood that the deeper you go into your own mind, the more the world begins to feel like a place built for sleepwalking. Not because you are broken, but because illusion is easier to market. The world rewards the agreeable nod, the practiced grin, the yes that keeps the machine humming. It calls this maturity. It calls this success. It calls it normal. But you've never been able to pretend for long. You see through the gloss, through the polite lies, through the rituals everyone performs to avoid meeting themselves. You can't help it. Jung warned that the more conscious a person becomes, the more they feel the weight of the collective unconscious pressing against them. That isn't flattery, it's a burden. In a culture that exiles depth, awareness is not a crown. It's a tender, dangerous responsibility. It starts early. You ask why when everyone else memorizes how. You notice the gaps between what adults say and what they do. You wonder why love seems to come with rules no one explains. Instead of real answers, you're asked to stop asking. Be good. Be quiet. Be like the others. So you learn silence, but your mind refuses to slow down. The questions just grow teeth. By the time you're grown, you've built a whole interior world. Rich, layered, endlessly alive. But out here, everything seems optimized for the opposite. At work, you're handed scripts. In love, you're told you're too much. Online, you're told to smile through it. So you tuck your edges in, not because you want to disappear, but because you remember what happens when you don't. Jung said the tribe fears what it doesn't understand, and depth is often misunderstood. When you speak precisely, people think you're showing off. When you sit quietly, they decide you're judging them. When you name pain, you're dramatic. When you ask questions, you're accused of overthinking. But you're not spiraling. You're seeing. You're noticing what was left unsaid. And that uncloaks things people are working very hard not to see. They flinch, not because you're wrong, but because you're right. You become a mirror. You don't mean to be, but you are. You reflect the shadow they'd rather keep buried, and meeting the shadow is terrifying. So they step back from you instead. If you've ever told a hard truth early, tried to spare someone a heartbreak they couldn't yet admit, you know what comes next. Silence, anger, distance. They call you negative. You were being faithful to reality. Real is dangerous. Real doesn't sell. Most people don't actually examine their beliefs. They rearrange them to stay comfortable. They repeat what they've heard. They perform what earns applause. But your mind won't sit still inside a script. It pulls things apart and puts them back together. It makes sense of what others insist is fine. You don't chase approval, you chase understanding. And approval slips away when you stop pretending not to see. Here's the grief no one warns you about. Awakening can feel like exile. The more your eyes adjust to truth, the more alone you may feel in a crowd. You try to lower your voice so others don't startle. You try to soften your light so no one looks away. You try to fit a shape you've already outgrown. But truth has its own frequency. Once you've tuned to it, pretending is like breathing underwater. You can do it for a moment, but it burns. So what do you do with a heart that hears undertones in a world that only wants melody? Where do you place a mind that won't be soothed by easy answers? How do you live without dimming what keeps you alive? Keep listening. We're going deeper next. From the moment you arrived, a script was pressed into your palms. Here's how to be good. Here's what to want. Here's what to fear. Smile on cue. Sit still when your body hums. Repeat the answers even when your questions ache. If you perform it well, the world nods and calls you healthy, successful, normal. If you stray, if you ask why when everyone else asks how, you become the ripple nobody asked for. Jung had a name for the pressure that makes people fold into sameness. Mass-mindedness. Not because most people are unkind, but because it's easier to belong to an echo than to belong to yourself. And if you won't go to sleep, they will call you too sensitive, too intense, too much. You are not too anything. You're awake, and the world is afraid of what is awake. Think about where you first felt the weight of that script. For many, it's school, where curiosity is praised until it wanders off the path, where desks line up like little fences and the bell tells you when to feel hungry and when to stop, where the gold stars go not to the child who wonders, but to the one who memorizes. You learned to trade wonder for approval because approval kept you safe, but your mind kept slipping windows open. You found yourself staring out, not because you didn't care, but because something inside you needed space to breathe. They called it daydreaming. You knew it was the only place you were free. Then comes the speed of living no soul can hold. Notifications like hail, news like sirens, tasks crowding tasks until the quiet in you can't find a place to sit. Jung believed the psyche needs stillness, shadow, and time. You already know this in your bones, so you create small sanctuaries. You linger an extra minute in your car before going inside. You let the kettle hum. You step outside at night for air that has not been scrolled. And the strange thing happens that always happens around depth. Your stillness reveals what noise is hiding. People feel it when you walk in. You don't just look, you see. Not with suspicion, but with presence. For those who have spent years not meeting their own eyes being seen as a shock, they pull back, not to hurt you, but to protect the stories that keep them intact. You get named loner, intense, difficult, the one who doesn't play along. Loneliness, your heart learns, isn't the absence of people. It's the ache of being unable to share what matters most. So you make yourself smaller to survive. You sand down your words. You laugh at things that aren't funny. You say it's fine when it isn't. The cost is subtle and enormous. You begin to doubt the compass inside you. Maybe I'm the issue. Maybe it would be easier if I stopped feeling so much. Maybe I should go quiet for good. Don't. The moment you abandon your depth is the moment you walk out on yourself. Jung put his faith in the courage of the conscious individual because he understood that a single person who refuses to numb can change the atmosphere around them. It isn't glamorous, it hurts, but it keeps the soul alive. Feeling is not a flaw in a culture addicted to numb. Feeling is revolt. You notice the strain in a room before anyone speaks. You hear the fear braided through a joke. You sit with someone, and their shoulders drop without knowing why. They leave lighter. You leave tired. There's a name for what's happening. Projection. When people place what they can't carry onto someone who looks like they can. It's not always malicious. It's human. But if you are the steady one, the knowing one, the open one, you become the canvas. Again and again, your presence turns into a shelter others seek during storms. And if you're not careful, you start to disappear inside your own kindness. Your thoughts blur. Your needs recede. Your voice grows thin. Then when you finally say, "I need space," the world that fed on your steadiness calls you cold. You are not cold. You are protecting a flame you nearly lost. The extraction doesn't stop at relationships. It's built into the media that tells you you are insufficient and then sells you a cure for the wound it just created. You can see the strings because you were born noticing them. But seeing the trick doesn't mean you're immune to its drain. Deep thinking is metabolically expensive. You don't skim, you digest. Every headline is an autopsy. Every image is a doorway. What others call scrolling is work for you, and nobody recognizes that cost because you look calm while you are processing a tidal wave. And in workplaces that worship speed, this depth gets mislabeled. Too philosophical. Not a team player. Slow to decide. As if holding a moral question to the light were a delay instead of wisdom. In love, It becomes you're too intense, as if a heart that tells the truth were a hazard rather than a refuge. In friendships, it becomes can we keep it light, as if lightness and honesty must be enemies. Real is inconvenient inside systems built on performance, so you pay for it. Fewer invitations, fewer easy nods, more silence where comfort used to be. Here's the paradox you live with. You were made for communion, and the way to it seems to require standing apart. It hurts. It will always hurt a little. But a different kind of loneliness lives on the other side of honesty. A clean solitude where you can finally hear yourself without interference. That solitude is not punishment. It is ground. It is how the soul grows roots deep enough to hold when the weather changes. There's a question that haunts people like you. What if I never find my people? What if I am too particular to be met? The truth is quieter and kinder. There are others who think in symbols and breathe in questions and cannot bear the taste of denial. They are scattered, yes, but they exist. You will recognize each other not by matching opinions, but by the way the air eases when truth enters the room. Until then, there are ways to stay intact in a world that pulls you thin. Boundaries that don't harden you but keep you porous in the right ways. Rituals that return you to yourself when the noise fills your lungs. Languages for saying no without apology. Yes, without self-betrayal. We're going there next. How to carry depth without breaking under it. How to stop leaking light. How to guard your energy without closing your heart. How to make a life big enough for everything you feel and everything you know. Begin with edges. Your empathy needs them. Love without boundaries is a river that forgets its banks and floods everything in reach, including you. It is not cruel to say no. It is not unkind to step back. It is clarity. When someone hands you what they cannot carry, you don't have to swallow it to prove you care. You can listen and still return what isn't yours. You can be a harbor without becoming the ocean. You can hold a hand without hauling the whole storm into your own chest. The people who are nourished by your presence will learn to meet you where you are. The ones who only know how to extract will call your limits selfish. Let them misunderstand. Your first vow is to the flame that keeps you alive. Create ways of coming back to yourself when the world pulls you thin. Let simple rituals become doors you can always open. Sit in honest silence long enough for your heartbeat to set the tempo again. Write until the fog thins and your voice reappears on the page. Breathe like you are repopulating your own lungs. Step outside and let the sky loosen the knots in your mind. Water helps. Heat helps. Moving your body until the static shakes loose helps. None of this is indulgence. It is maintenance for a mind that processes life in long, deep arcs. Guard your attention like it is a life, because it is. The noise will never volunteer to quiet itself. You will have to choose it. Fewer inputs, richer nourishment. Seek what deepens rather than distracts. Let emptiness exist between moments so your psyche can metabolize what it's already holding. You don't owe the world your constant availability. The culture will label your slowness as laziness. Trust the part of you that knows its wisdom. Depth requires pace, and pace that honors a soul will never impress a stopwatch. Be careful with your truths. Not everyone has earned access to the rooms inside you. Test for safety. Share where curiosity lives and performance dies. Speak with those who don't punish honesty, who don't fear the dark as long as there is a hand to hold and a match to strike. You are not difficult for wanting conversations with gravity. You are discerning. Let that discernment choose your circles. Equally, let it choose your work. Align what you make with what you mean. Even if this costs you status, the price of misalignment is far higher, and it is paid slowly with pieces of yourself. When the old ache returns and tells you to shrink, meet it with a stronger fidelity to what is real. The path of becoming who you truly are is not a hobby. It is the central labor of a life. Call it individuation. Call it integration. Call it finally coming home. Whatever the name, it asks that you face your shadow without flinching, that you forgive the versions of yourself that kept you alive, that you gather back the parts you exiled to be acceptable. There will be days when the ground disappears. There will be nights when it feels like a betrayal to keep going. In those hours, Remember that emptiness is often the silence just before something new can speak. Space is not failure. It is invitation. You are not here to be universally palatable. You are not here to be background noise. You are here, maybe, to wake a handful of sleeping rooms, to say the one true thing that lets someone else breathe, to be the person who doesn't look away. That will not make you popular. It will make you medicine. Not the kind that performs on a stage, but the quiet kind that stays when the lights go off, that steadies a trembling nervous system, that names what hurts so healing can begin. You do not need a title for this. You need only your presence, your honesty, your refusal to abandon what you know. And yes, it can be lonely. Loneliness is what happens when your language has no listener. But solitude is different. Solitude is where you finally hear yourself without interruption and realize how much wisdom has been waiting to speak. In that clean quiet, you stop bargaining with your soul for approval. You stop sanding your edges to fit someone else's container. You stop making your truth smaller so it will be easier to carry. The moment you stop apologizing for your depth, the right people can find you. They will recognize each other by the way silence between you feels full, by the way truth does not frighten, but relieves. Even if you meet only a few in your lifetime, it will be enough. 2 candles change a dark room. The world will continue to reward performance and punish presence. It will offer applause in exchange for your numbness. It will beg you to trade your clarity for comfort. Smile gently and decline. Keep returning to what is solid. Keep asking the questions that make life honest again. Keep choosing relationships where your aliveness is not a problem to be managed, but a gift to be received. Let others rise to meet your boundaries or drift away. Both outcomes are mercy. If these words feel like a hand on your shoulder, stay with this space. Add your voice so others can find it. Share what this stirred in you, even if it is only a single word that names your state. Subscribe and keep close. You won't be asked to dilute yourself here. And if this work helps you hold your light, your support helps it reach the ones still searching for their own. The world may resist the ones who notice, but it is the ones who notice who keep the rest of us from sleepwalking off the edge. Keep your eyes open, keep your heart soft, keep going even quietly, even without witnesses. One day, what looks like stubbornness will be recognized as devotion. Until then, walk as you are, relentless in your care, faithful to what is true, unafraid to be real in a time that runs from reality.